Hello, and welcome to the 32nd episode of the Dead Soon podcast. It has been a while. I recorded, I set my goal for 10 episodes this year. We're already beginning of June when I'm recording this, and I've only done one. So definitely want to pick back up. I think things have just been a little busy. Work wise, and just kind of everything. I think I've just deprioritized the podcast a bit. But I'm trying to get back into it. Um, Quick life updates. I mean, I graduated a year ago, which is pretty crazy to think. Been working full time for a year now. Um, and I've been trying to sort of lock back in fitness health wise. So really been trying to focus on that recently the most. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of yeah. I mean, there's not a ton of time during the week, but I make it work. I've been prioritizing things that I want to work on. So yeah, this episode is gonna be potentially probably a long one. So it's gonna be about a series that I started watching slash reading about 2 years ago, maybe I would say about. And I'll give some background, but it's on One Piece. For those who've heard of it, hopefully you love it too. If you haven't heard of it, I'll explain that too. But yeah, so I guess we'll start it off. So what is One Piece? It's a fantasy anime TV show, manga, which is a comic, and it began in 1997, and it's still going to this day. I discovered it 2023, 20, probably 2024. Yeah, 2024 later. Um and yeah, it's known for obviously, like, I mean, it's a series that's been going on since 1997 with essentially a new like 20-page chapter will get released every single week. Um Generally the author does about 40 episodes. I mean 40 chapters in a 52-week year. Um Give or take. And it also became a TV show, an animated TV show, cartoon type thing. Um, and yeah, it's known for obviously its scale. It's a massive series. This fantasy world building, which I really really love. I think my appreciation for like a fantasy world building came from shows like the Midnight Gospel and Adventure Time. With this like sort of no just kind of no limit fantasy, super funky. um and yeah, and One Piece definitely, so big picture, just sort of a story about pirates going after this treasure that's really as approachable as it can be. It's very simple, but then you kind of go deeper. So on my first watch through, I kind of just didn't have any background information, which I think is the best. So if you're considering watching it, I would just not listen to this and go start watching. But otherwise, the deeper you go, kind of, there's a base layer where it can just be an enjoyable, fun story. It's visually appealing. It's cool. So I started off by watching the TV show, but then you kind of go a little deeper, and then you're seeing there's um, there's themes of colonization, racism. There's historical references. There's politics. There's corruption. There's love. There's folklore. There's mythology. It really just has so many elements that I really really do love. And it feels like it's like an odyssey of sorts. I read the Odyssey recently, and I was like, I don't know. Obviously, it's not like One Piece is like an exact Odyssey, but it's an Odyssey of sort, as it's like a massive grand adventure that's being held. And then in 2023, a live action series came out, actual actors, and it ended up being very well received. Season two came out in 2026. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that. Um, and then who's this episode for? This is for family and friends who maybe just have no interest in watching One Piece, but somebody they care about enjoys it. AKA you want to get that level of understanding without committing. It's 1,000 chapters, 1,000 episodes, each episode being 20 minutes. It's a huge commitment. Caught up fully in about a year, which is pretty crazy. I was really really locked in. It's like a lot of time. um Maybe for people who watch some of the live action, people who are curious about potentially starting the show or reading it, I'm taking this series, this little mini series, where I'm gonna walk through different kind of parts of the story. I'm reading them. I have the books here. Um, they're about this big. This is a 3-in-1. It has three different 3 books in one. One sec. Those are the 4 that I'll be going over today. So it's 4 books worth. So my brief little history. If I told myself that I'd be making this episode 5 years ago, I would be like, "What are you talking about?" I was kind of always kind of anti anime. I always just thought it was kind of weird. Just kind of my teenage mind was like, "Oh, that stuff's weird." Blah blah blah. Some of my friends were into it. I really just like, not my thing. Whatever. I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender during my junior year of college. I'd never seen it before. It's definitely like a staple for a lot of people our age. So um, I started that. I really really loved it. This is Avatar, not the blue people. Avatar the cartoon from Nickelodeon. Um, and then I got introduced to another type of anime called Hunter x Hunter. Pretty good. Enjoyed the style. Didn't like the voice acting. It kind of had that typical like stereotypical thing that anime will have, where it's like a very high pitched voice and it gets a little annoying and it gets a little creepy sometimes. Really wasn't a fan of that. But I started reading it a little bit and I enjoyed reading it more than watching it. I was like, okay. So I read a decent amount of the books, liked it, and then I sort of I believe I watched Vinland Saga, which is like a pirate anime, and then it sort of just like I was like, I've always been interested in pirates. I've always loved like pirate stuff. Just been a weird interest of mine. Um, and I really all I knew was like One Piece is about pirates. I was like, all right, sure. So I started it, got hooked, read the entire series. I watched probably 80-75% of it and then read the other 25. There's just certain parts that obviously are really long and I just preferred reading. Um, and yeah, manga background. I gave a little bit of this. It's a weekly release, gets released in this large kind of magazine type format, weekly, like a newspaper magazine type vibe. Um, and yeah, so and it comes in, it's Japanese and it gets translated to English, blah, blah, blah. Um, One Piece has been out for a long time, very many chapters. Each chapter tends to be like a 15 to 20 pager, sort of normal chapter format. It's just obviously a comic book. Um, and then some key things. So how the story is kind of divided. There's arcs, which is like a story arc, sort of has like a very logical start and end. It tends to be on one like island or one area. These sort of ladder into each other, so a couple arcs will come together, and they'll kind of have this progression and create a saga, which is a saga is a bunch of arcs together. Usually, an arc will be named after the island where the events take place. Um, for example, we'll get into there's Drum Island is one that we'll talk about. I don't know if that's will be this episode, but that's an island, but it fits into a larger saga. Um, so yeah, there's currently 32 arcs, and then the sagas much larger. There are 11 sagas that sort of like fit together. So from what I'm doing, I'm covering one saga in this episode, essentially, give or take a little bit. Before I start, I'm not an expert. I'm a casual anime fan. I'm a casual One Piece fan. I just find it cool, so I wanted to introduce it to this podcast. And it's something that I'm really interested in, and I really do enjoy it. I think it's the greatest story, greatest adventure story that's ever been written. I haven't read a lot of adventure stories, open to more, but I really, really love this story. So yeah, let's kick it off. So this part of the story is called the East Blue, um, and this is where we start. So my style of this, I'm sort of going to run through bullets, and then just talk through stuff I want to talk about, but sort of progress through the story as if I'm telling the story. Obviously, I'm not going to hit every detail because if I did, this would be a very, very long sort of experience. Um, so yeah, let's get started. All right. So we start with East Blue. This is just 7 chapters, 3 episodes, very short. Okay. So we start with a flashback. There's a man. His name is Gold Roger. He is the king of the pirates in this flashback. This is um, he's getting executed. He's a villain. He's in the eyes of the government. Sorry, I'm just setting up my screen over here. Okay, there we go. So, Roger is on the execution stand in front of a lot of people. Sorry, having some technical difficulties. There we go. All right. Gold Roger, he's the king of the pirates. He's on an execution stand in front of thousands of people. And he calls out that he's hidden his treasure, all of his treasure, known as the One Piece, somewhere, and it needs to be discovered. This kicks off a pirate era, sending tons of people out to sea to chase these riches, the glory. And this is 24 years. This is a flashback 24 years before the start of the series. So that's really all you start with. He's like, if you want my treasure, go and find it. That's it. That's sort of how we start. And we just know him as the king of the pirates, seemingly because he got whatever the One Piece is. Okay, so then we open on a 9-year-old boy named Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy, who's our main character here. In a little coastal town called Fuchsia Village. There's pirates there known as the Red-Haired Pirates. And Luffy's just a kid who really wants to be a pirate. He idolizes these red-haired pirates and their captain named Shanks. Shanks sort of becomes a father figure to Luffy. Luffy's just kind of like a kid that just happens to be in the town. And we start out with a scene where Luffy and Shanks' crew are in a bar, and it's a local sort of bandit comes into the bar and asks for all the liquor, and all the liquor's been drank up by Shanks and his crew. And Shanks feels bad. He offers him a bottle, one last bottle, and the guy's like, "What the hell am I going to do with this?" Breaks the bottle, makes a fool of Shanks, and Shanks really doesn't care. Luffy's very furious. He sees his idol, his hero, backing down from a challenge. And then eventually Luffy's captured by the bandit. He's thrown into the ocean. And Shanks loses his arm trying to save Luffy, and he does save Luffy. And this sort of sets an early sort of idea of sacrifice and then only reacting when necessary. Shanks is someone who's very composed. So yeah, this is a key sort of beginning. And Luffy, just sort of very silly kid, eats this fruit that he finds just in sort of like the back rooms um, of the bar that they're all hanging out at. And this is from Shanks's crew. It's a devil fruit. This is a key part of the story. So Luffy just randomly eats a fruit that he finds, and then it's sort of discovered when someone on the crew like tries to like grab Luffy to be like stop being an idiot or something, and then his arm stretches very far. He's somehow gained these powers to turn his body into rubber from this devil fruit. The catch being, this devil fruit, you're making a deal with the devil. You can't swim, and this is a world covered with water. It's very island based, so that obviously is a huge hurdle for a pirate, especially for someone who's sailing the seas. Huge problem. This is fundamental to the series. Devil fruits are really where the story feels like fantasy, and sort of anything can happen. Crazy superpowers. Some of them are stupid. Some of them are silly. Some of them are really, really powerful. Some of them, like, all over the place. And then it's sort of this little flashback ends with Shanks has this straw hat that he always wears. It's iconic. And he gives it to Luffy. And he says, hold on to this. And next time I see you, you're going to be a great pirate. And this hat is Shanks' prized possession. He loves it. And he sort of just is like, return it to me one day. He sort of sees something in Luffy that he's like, I really think this kid's going to be something. And then we sort of fast forward. Teenage Luffy. Luffy is now on his own. He's setting out on a little tiny boat with a goal to become the king of the pirates, which is where we started. Gold Roger wanted to be was the king of the pirates, was executed for it. And Luffy immediately just makes it clear that he's going to be the king of the pirates. He stops in a little small town called Shellstown, and he ends up in this sort of it's a marine outpost base, and it's living under the iron fist of this corrupt marine captain named Captain Morgan. He's really just ruling this town with like corruption and really just striking fear into all the citizens there. Luffy finds a man named Roronoa Zoro, who's a famous bounty hunter who was captured by the Marines and left to starve as punishment. Out, he's basically like in the stocks up in the yard, and Luffy finds him. Zoro is there. He's has his reputation sort of precedes him in the anime, especially. He's very like you get this like cool vibe, and like the episode sort of ends with just like seeing him like hung over the stocks, super super iconic. Um, and Zoro's been there for weeks. He won't break. He won't die. Luffy sees Zoro and is like, "Hey, this guy seems cool," and he wants him to join his crew. Zoro doesn't really want to join his crew, doesn't really care about Luffy, but he sort of sees something in Luffy's sort of spirit and just how he acts. And then Luffy just happens to free him just because Luffy wants to. He's like, "You don't have to join my crew, but I'm going to free you." They sort of end up coming together, becoming a crew together, and Zoro joins as the first mate. And this sort of concludes the first little section of the story. We get a lot, but it's also really not that long. We just get a couple of characters. We get Luffy, who has this like lack of common sense as our main character. He has a huge heart, and he's got this rubber body, these weird powers. He's very much himself, which is a part of him that's very admirable and just cool as a protagonist. We have Shanks. He doesn't show up a lot in the story, but he's definitely like a looming figure, and we'll learn more about his role in the whole world of One Piece. But for now, all you really need to know, he seems to be powerful. He stands up for his friends, and he's Luffy's kind of role model. And he gave Luffy the straw hat. Luffy and his crew eventually become known as the Straw Hat Pirates. And yeah, and then we meet Zoro, pirate hunter, swordsman, who becomes a pirate. He fights with three swords, one for each hand, and one in his mouth. Pretty awesome stuff. He establishes this dynamic with Luffy as like sort of a partnership. He pledges loyalty to Luffy. He has this dream of becoming the world's greatest swordsman. You get a little bit of a flashback. Zoro, when he was a little kid, was best friends with this girl Kuina, and he could never beat her in a like a sword fight. The two made a promise that one of them would become the greatest swordsman in the world. Kuina ends up dying from a tragic accident, and then Zoro kind of keeps this promise rooted within him that he will become the greatest swordsman. So you're seeing a theme. Luffy, Zoro, both members of now this newly created Straw Hat crew, both have clear dreams. They're chasing something that you'd have to be a little bit insane to chase. It's something that's impossible. Both of the things that they're trying to accomplish, there can only be one of each. They're really trying to become something, and they see this. There's a vibe between them that really just attracts them to each other. Next little section, we move on to Orange Town, chapters 8 through 21. And so Luffy washes ashore in a town called Orange Town. It's been overtaken by this pirate crew called the Buggy Pirates. Um, he these the townspeople are getting terrorized. They're hiding. Luffy and Zoro meet Nami, who's this young woman who's just looks. She's a thief, and she's a navigator. That's really all you really know about her. She navigates the seas pretty well, but she's a bandit. She steals stuff. She just uses people as pawns. She has no interest in joining the crew. Luffy tells her, "I want you to join my crew." She does not care at all. She does not want to. Luffy fights Buggy. Buggy's the captain of these Buggy Pirates. One of the series' earliest like little like villains. He's pretty silly. He's a devil fruit power as well. He can detach his limbs, and sort of like they can fly everywhere. Crazy power. Um, there's definitely you get the feeling and the vibe of like these towns that they're in. This is very early in One Piece. Devil fruits are something that are feared and not really fully understood. They're very rare in this part of the world in the One Piece universe. Pretty important. Luffy defeats Buggy. Whatever. Definitely won't be the last time we see Buggy. But Nami agrees to travel with the crew temporarily, just for her own reasons. She does not trust Luffy. She just needed a ship. She's going to use them and then get rid of them as soon as she can. That's really all you find out about her. Um, so that's very quick. These are very quick pieces of the story, just kind of as we get started. It tends to get stretched out a little bit as time goes on, but for now we're kind of just hopping around. We learn about Nami here. She's appears to be a smart, very self-protective person. She's a navigator. She's been surviving on her own for years. They're all like in their like teens. Everybody, they're around like 16 to 18 ish. Um, she's not this like damsel in distress character. She's very much like a strong, competent person. And yeah, she likes to solve problems on her own. We'll get more on her story later. Another character introduced, Buggy. Buggy's a very like goofy comedic villain, but there's definitely some like little bits of like menace underneath. I think it's a good start of the series, having a good kind of simple villain. And then next arc or next island within this arc, Syrup Village, chapters 22 to 41. This is the so before they get into so this part of Syrup Village. Right before they get into Syrup Village, they stumble on this island and they meet a man who's been trapped inside a treasure chest, and he's sort of grown with the treasure chest. His name is Gaimon. This isn't a super relevant part of the story, but I think I just gravitate towards it a little bit because one, the author of One Piece, Ichiro Oda, has said that it's his favorite character. He just like loves the character. It's a very simple character that we almost never see again, Gaimon, and it's just this sort of like little parable where he's been guarding. Gaimon got trapped in the chest. He's been protecting. He has treasure on the island, but he just can't get to it. He's been guarding it for 20 years. And then Luffy has these crazy stretchy powers. I guess we should establish that a little bit more. Luffy can stretch his limbs. He can use it to fight. He can use it to climb places, all different random stuff like that. Luffy goes to the top of this little like hill or whatever where the chests are, opens all the treasure, and it ends up being empty. Gaimon isn't like I said super relevant, but it's this little parable of like the guy's been protecting the island forever. It ends up being that he's protecting nothing. Luffy offers like, "Oh, do you want to join my crew?" And he's like, "No, I think I want to stay and protect the island." And yeah, he's very simple, not really that relevant, but thought I'd include it. Then the crew sails into Syrup Village. They're on a very like temporary like kind of shitty ship. For right now, they're going to this area in hope of finding a ship. They enter this town, this little village, and they see ships there. So they're like, all right, maybe this will be something. They meet a boy named Usopp. He's sort of like the local boy who cried wolf. He's known for telling these crazy lies and like screaming and being like, there's pirates here every single day, basically. And just like the whole village is just like kind of feels bad for him, but also just gets annoyed by him. Sort of like this Pinocchio boy who cried wolf. He happens to also have a very large nose, adding to that Pinocchio vibe. But this little sector centers on his relationship, Usopp and Kaya, who's this local girl. She's like a rich girl. She lives in this mansion in this village. It's kind of like the only like mansiony house. And she lives there with her butler, and the butler has been living with her family. Her parents passed away, so it's just her, and the butler is sort of seemingly at first just seems to be a regular guy, just kind of taking care of the family or taking care of the house. He served the parents. He now serves her. He ends up being a pirate in disguise. He's sort of biding his time to claim Kaya's fortune and then kill her. Usopp and this guy, the butler, Klahadore, his name is very much not a fan of Usopp. Usopp is friends with Kaya, and he'll just kind of tell her crazy stories, and that's really kind of it. He has these miraculous, crazy lies that he tells, and it's cute and it's fun, and they have a fun little friendship. Usopp sort of discovers that Klahadore is an evil pirate. No one believes him because he's been lying about everything his entire life. Um, no one believes him, but then Luffy's like, I believe you. Luffy and them team up, back him up. There's a dramatic battle, and they defeat this evil butler slash pirate, and they save Kaya, and they end up actually Kaya, this being this was left these businesses and tons of wealth by her family, ends up gifting the crew a ship because they really needed one called the Going Merry. This is a very iconic pirate ship. I actually, let me see, I have a Lego set of it right there. Um, um, yeah, this is like sort of like the iconic ship in the series. It's huge. That little like you see the flag, the Jolly Roger. Um, it becomes sort of like a character within the series. The Going Merry, definitely very iconic. Um, but yeah, this little sector, Syrup Village, I like it. I think I like the introduction. I like Usopp. At first, he's a little bit challenging as a character, especially in the anime. His voice can be a little annoying. When you're reading it, he's a little bit better. And actually, in the live action, he ends up being my favorite character. But he's sort of he's a very much a normal guy. He's supposed to be the person that, well, he ends up joining the crew. He says he dreams of being a pirate, blah blah blah, but he's a coward. He's kind of like the only normal guy on the crew. He's sort of like that piece of like the straight man in a way, like how that'll happen in some shows. He's the normal guy. He doesn't have any special powers. Zoro's super strong. Luffy has these devil fruit powers. He's a rubber man. He can fight. Nami, who at this point is just kind of traveling with the crew, has he's like is a genius navigator, and Usopp is just kind of a regular guy. He's kind of like the everyman. He ends up kind of just filling a role on the crew of like being like the carpenter, taking care of business on the ship, um, and like making repairs. He wants to be brave. He's a liar. He's terrified all the time. He'll tell you when he's terrified. He just sort of tries his best, and he's a lot of the time fails. And he's a lovable character. But yeah, he's very like an ordinary. He's got no elite training, no powers, and um, he's sort of lies to himself. And this saga was about him like sort of understanding that there's lies, and he I don't know. It's he tells a lot of lies, and he sort of has to work up a little bit of bravery in this, and it's sort of just a nice fun start for Usopp. Like I said, sometimes like when I started, I wasn't the biggest Usopp fan. He's really grown on me as a character. Um, but yeah, and then I guess I'll get into his little backstory. So Usopp has this sort of boy who cried wolf stuff kind of persona going on, and this comes from when he was a little kid. He would cry for pirates, hoping it was his father returning home. His dad left him and his mom to go become a pirate. Every day while his mother was in her deathbed, dying of a sickness, he would tell her these magical stories of like these crazy lies. And he's very much like a storyteller in the series. And it's a sad backstory, which you will notice is a trend. Everybody's got these sad backstories, but his father never returns. His mother dies in his arms. It's very sad. It's a really good intro for like these One Piece character backstories, because we got the Zoro backstory with his best friend dying, but you really didn't get a lot of that sort of like extra information. Then Luffy, we kind of got like almost nothing. You don't get Luffy's full backstory for a while. So yeah, this is a really just sad. It's a key part of Usopp's character, and it makes sense. But these stories are what make him himself, and make him maybe feel some sort of power being able to tell these stories. And then key detail, extra detail, doesn't really matter that much, but Usopp's father, his name is Yasop. He's a member of Shanks's crew. Shanks being the Luffy's idol who gave him the straw hat. So there's a little connection there. But we'll no brand new characters besides Usopp, but there's that evil butler Klahadore, also known as Kuro. Um, he's a different type of villain. Buggy is very silly and flamboyant, where Kuro is very like just kind of he's just like an evil guy. he's cruel, he's evil, he hates everybody, and he just really just looking out for himself. We will not see him again. He's a decent villain. Um, but yeah, that's Syrup Village. Then we're moving into the Baratier arc, which is a very fun one. This covers chapters 42 to 68. So the crew's kind of just floating around in the sea. They're like, what are we looking for? Blah blah blah. They end up finding the Baratier, which is a floating restaurant on the sea. Luffy, being an idiot, accidentally damages the restaurant and gets forced to work off debt. Very silly. And the head chef is named Zeph, Chef Zeph. And then there's a key other character named Sanji. Sanji and Zeph run this restaurant together. Zeph's the head, and Sanji just like they're very close and they're kind of always bickering. They share this core principle that anybody who's hungry deserves to be fed, no questions asked, even enemies. Which we then see this powerful pirate named Don Krieg wants to take over the Baratier by force. He's one of the more powerful pirates in the East Blue, this region of the sea that they're still in. Sanji even feeds Don Krieg's crew, who is starving and on the brink of death. And then that crew turns and then uses that power from being fed to then attack the Baratier restaurant. So this is a restaurant made for pirates, so they're kind of used to this rough and tumbleness. But they have to sort of fight and defend the ship. A mysterious figure shows up named Dracula Mihawk. I know I'm introducing a lot of characters here. I'll recap at the end of every section who's important, who's not. This man is the greatest swordsman in the world. We connect back. Zoro wants to become the greatest swordsman in the world. He's been hunting Don Krieg's fleet, and then Zoro doesn't understand strength or perspective or how big this world is, immediately challenges Mihawk to a fight. Mihawk is the greatest swordsman in the world. He absolutely destroys Zoro. Zoro does not stand a chance here, but Mihawk sort of takes note of Zoro's willpower and potential and decides not to kill him. Luffy doesn't even intervene. He watches because he's seeing his friend go after his dream. And he's like, so be it. If this is what he wants, I'm not going to stand in his way. And that's something that's big for Luffy. He does not stand in the way of other people's dreams. Dreams are a very big part of this story, as Luffy is consistently saying, I'm going to be king of the pirates. He's going to accomplish his dreams. So Zoro vows to defeat Mihawk one day, but leaves with a huge scar. And yeah, this is an important part of the story, just sort of foundational for Zoro. He vows to never lose again. This is a huge moment in the series for him, and sort of his first, I don't know, it's like a major fight and sort of big moment for Zoro as a character. But we're still at the restaurant, the Baratier. Sanji, who's the cook, at the local cook at the restaurant. We learned this little backstory of sort of why they have this relationship and him and Zeph and what's going on here. So back, I don't know, maybe 10 years before, maybe it's a flashback of 10 years, Zeph and Sanji end up being shipwrecked. They were both happened to be on the same ship, doesn't really matter. And Zeph gives Sanji all the food rations that they wash ashore with, and ends up eating his own leg to survive. He has a peg leg in the modern story. He eats his own leg to stay alive. This is another example of crazy sacrifice within the story. And the reason he does it is because him and Sanji, they found out, share a dream, chasing this thing called the All Blue. They're both chefs and interested in cuisine, and they love food. And the All Blue is supposedly this, it's sort of like this mythical part of the sea, that all parts of the sea, so I guess this is important to tell, we've been in the East Blue this entire time. There's the north, east, south, and west blue, sort of like 4 quadrants of how the world is kind of set up. Zeph essentially is sacrificing himself because he sees that Sanji has the same dream as him, and he knows that he's not going to accomplish it, so he's going to sacrifice himself to keep his dream alive. This is an awesome flashback. It's got this sacrifice, this starvation, sort of giving a second chance at life, and it's an awesome backstory. Um, Once again, another tragic one for the crew, and another member of the crew who has this single goal. Um, you sort of can see this theme forming. We've got Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. Zoro wants to be the strongest swordsman. Nami, who seems to be a part of the crew at this point, um, is wants to draw a map of the world. Usopp wants to be a brave warrior of the sea. He wants to get that bravery, and Sanji wants to find the all blue. They all have these dreams, and they're really just becoming this sort of found family together. The arc ends with Sanji joining the crew, so who I just recapped is currently members of the crew. Um, Sanji doesn't want to leave the Baratie at first, but then Zeph and the other members of the Baratie, the chefs on board, sort of shoo him away, and they know that Sanji's made for better things, so they have to do that kind of guy thing where it's like you don't want to say like "I love you, man," so you instead are like go away, like I don't want you here. Um, so yeah, we introduce Sanji as a character, very important character. Fun detail, fun fantasy thing. He fights with his legs, not his hands. His hands are for cooking. Fights with his feet. It's very funny. He's a hopeless romantic. He's a little bit weird around women. The anime makes him much weirder. The manga, he's a little bit more tame. Um, and he can definitely get a little bit annoying. He's not my favorite character. He's a lot of people's favorite character, though. He has an awesome backstory where we only got a little bit of it. But yeah, you've really learned that feeding people is a philosophy. It's as somebody, he was starving on that island even after Zeph sacrificed and gave him all the food. He ended up still being starved. And he, as someone who's experienced what starvation is like, he believes that no one should ever go hungry. Um, and yeah, this he's an interesting character to introduce. The crew desperately needed a cook. Oh, having some issues with my. Oh, I think we're all good. The crew desperately needed a cook, and you're sort of getting these roles on the ship. Um, Nami navigating, Luffy's the captain. Kind of doesn't. He's just the captain. He's just for the vibes. Um, Nami navigates. Zoro is the swordsman on the crew. Sanji's the cook, and Usopp is the sort of like taking care of all the odd jobs and like this carpenter on board and repairing the ship. Um, we also meet Dracula Mihawk. We won't need to remember him very much for right now, but sets the tone. I think it's important. We're starting very, very zoomed in this world. We're starting at a very micro perspective, and this is the world's greatest swordsman in this massive world. It definitely sets the tone. It shows that our Straw Hat crew is super weak compared to the grand scheme of things. Mihawk, total other planet in terms of power. And now we're getting towards the climax of this East Blue arc, which is and it goes to Arlong Park. So Nami ends up turning on the crew and sort of escapes. In the anime, manga, and live action, it's sort of a little different on each, but she sort of just turns on the crew, sails away, takes their map that they were using to get to the Grand Line. Um, and yeah, she reveals that she's a member of another pirate crew called Arlong's crew, led by this man named Arlong. And Luffy sort of refuses to accept this, and he's like, Nami's a good person. She would never do this. So they're like, you know what? Let's go after her. Let's get her back. The rest of the crew are a little suspicious, but Luffy, he's the captain. He's like, we're going after Nami. There's something up here. They get to this islands called the Konomi Islands, and Arlong, this pirate, has been ruling over the humans in this area. He is a fishman, like a half human, half fish. Another funky, crazy thing about One Piece. He's ruling over. He hates humans. He thinks they're disgusting. He thinks they're less than. Um, and he's basically a mafia boss of this area. He's making them pay tribute. He'll kill anyone who doesn't pay tribute. And we sort of get the rest of Nami's backstory. What makes her the way she is? She doesn't trust people. She hates pirates, and she's always looking out for herself because she always has to. Important because she has been working for Arlong since he killed her mother. Her mother had to pay tribute for Nami's sister, and herself, and she could only afford to pay for the two kids. So she paid the tribute for the kids, and then said, "I don't have any more to pay," and then uh, gets killed. And Nami decides to work for Arlong, and becomes hated in this village, but strikes a deal with him without anyone else knowing that if she can gather an exorbitant amount of money, that he will let her buy back the freedom of her island and of her people. She's been doing this for years. This is another just extremely tragic backstory that we learn. She's been stealing. She's been doing whatever she can to save up money, and she'd been taking hate from her former villagers. Her sister, nobody knew why she was doing this. They're like, "You're a traitor. You're disgusting." And she never told them because she didn't want to sacrifice or put them in jeopardy. And of course, unfortunately, Arlong, being one of the evil pirates that we learn that exist in this universe, um, he doesn't intend to hold up this bargain with Nami. He turns on her. He has a deal with these corrupt local Marines, um, who are part of like the Marines serve the government. There's like a world government structure, not super important now, but the Marines supposed to be the good guys, corrupt. Arlong strikes a deal with them. They basically take all Nami's treasure that she's been saving for like a decade, and this culminates with Nami, someone who never asks for help, breaking down. She's usually very tough. Um, she breaks down. She's held to everything together for so long, and she asks Luffy for help. And this is one of the best scenes in the entire story. Um, all she says is help. So she has a branding, a mark on her arm from the Arlong pirates. That's sort of like when she pledged allegiance to him, he made her do it to sort of be like, "I own you. You're my um, basically slave." And she's stabbing herself in the arm, trying to break that off to be like, "This is it." Like cutting off that piece of her, and she's crying, and she just asks for help. Luffy grabs her arm as she's about to stab herself again, and he takes off his hat, places it on her, and then there's just this iconic walk to Arlong Park, which is Arlong's area of this island, and there's an awesome battle, super iconic scene of them sort of walking to Arlong Park. Luffy crushes him after a good fight, and I feel like this is a very key part of One Piece. This is the first sort of larger island in One Piece that I think a lot of people start to fall in love with the series, and they're like, "Oh, like this is for real." Um, yeah, it's a really big moment where people fall in love with the series, and I don't know exactly where I really got super hooked on the series, but I definitely was really excited watching this, and I felt like there was I was like, this is only like, well, this was like episode what, like 40, and there's 1,000. I'm like, what the hell else could happen in this series? um but yeah, that's Arlong Park. The only new character we meet, Arlong. I think it's we should dive into him a little bit. He's this villain that he feels like he's more three-dimensional. He has his hatred of humans. He's a fishman. Fishmen have been discriminated and treated like garbage in this world, forever. They're treated as less than compared to humans. Humans have always mistreated them. His people have been oppressed, and his response is to oppress people. And his idea of that is to scare them and kill them and threaten them. And he's it's not just like, it's not evil just because he's like an evil guy. It's evil like an ideological evil. There's definitely something deeper here. Um, and this is where or Arlong Park is a part of the series where things feel, it's an adventure, but things there feels like there's more going on. You get that little bit of corruption from the Marines. You see bad pirates, you see good pirates. And then there's obviously that like really sad backstory coming from Nami probably the saddest backstory at this point. Um, she sacrificed everything and was double crossed. Yeah, it's an emotional part of the series. But yeah, that is. I thought that was going to take me much longer. I sort of just breezed through everything. I don't know exactly what this little series is going to end up being. But yeah, I wanted to cover this sort of first section of One Piece. This is four of the books. Well, four of the 3-in-1 books. So, um, yeah, this is a decent amount of chapters. This is 12 full books and 100 chapters. Um, yeah, so we're sort of painting the picture of this world. I love the series because the world that the author is able to build. We start very narrow, like I said, and we're kind of just hopping from island to island. We're in the East Blue region, this one small area of the world, and we're getting these little inklings of stuff. We're seeing that there's pirates, but there's good pirates, and there seems to be bad pirates. There's people that are motivated by dreams. There's this grand pirate era that was kicked off. There's corruption. There's theft. There's killing. It's sort of all over the place, and it's very silly at the same time. It manages to have these fun jokes and gags, and it just it starts very starts small, but I think it just, for me, what hooks me is this grand adventure. I love pirates. I love these adventure stories, and I think as we keep going through the story, you'll see more and more what I'm talking about, and you'll sort of like paint things together. The thing that I love about this series, and the reason that I think I've sort of struggled with some other anime, like I tried watching Naruto, which is another huge anime manga, sort of same vein as One Piece. Um, Naruto is very much character driven and like character development driven, and it doesn't as much, for me at least. Don't kill me because I haven't actually seen the whole thing at all, so maybe it's phenomenal. And I've heard good things. But One Piece has this world building, and I think that's really what I appreciate the most. Um, it has this, like, as we get more into this, there's history, there's so many layers, and I love this, like, the history and the politics, and this, that we're discovering the world through the lens of this crew of like kind of misfits that are exploring the world, and they really don't know anything, and they're way out of their element. um and yeah, that's, and then Naruto ends up being very character driven and deeply introspective, which I still enjoy, but I think I enjoy this sort of like Odyssey structure more, for me. And yeah, I read the Odyssey, just like the regular book, for the first time like a couple months back, because I had seen a YouTube episode or a YouTube video that was talking about like One Piece being this sort of modern Odyssey. um, and obviously it's a silly story. It's nothing too insane from sort of like a bird's eye view. You're just looking at it, it's like, oh, it's just like a silly like comic book series. It's an animated series, but for me, the thing that I love is that it feels like so much more than that. There's there's this intrigue that I really think it just draws me in, and I'd highly recommend it to anybody. I'm sort of gonna continue. I'm doing a reread, so I reread these four. I actually have reread like, um I think I'm in like almost 30. For the reread, there's about 110 books total. Um, so I'm just gonna kind of cover them as I go. Um, I The next episode will continue, and they'll get towards this thing called the Grand Line. I'll do a little recap at the beginning of each episode of sort of like what's happened so far. But ideally, if you're listening to this, you start with this episode, and then you just kind of move to whatever the next ones will be. Um, yeah. I'm not gonna do like a rating or anything. I think all the parts of the series are awesome. I think when I first read it and I first watched it, I really just didn't take my time as much as I should have. I was really just trying to catch up, which is awesome, and I really did love it and enjoy it. But now I'm really taking my time with it, and I'm reading it purposely, and I'm slowly buying up all the books, um, as I go. So yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. This sort of reread and being very intentional about it. I watch YouTube videos about it. I read stuff about it. I enjoy it a lot, and I'm sort of creating this for people that maybe just aren't that interested in the first place, or maybe you're just like, oh, like what is that about? Or like my parents listening, or somebody. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a little bit of understanding of this. There's way more. This is a huge world that gets created. Um, but yeah, if you made it this far, I really do appreciated it. Appreciate it. Kept it very casual. Just kind of yapping. So if you enjoyed it, I thank you. If you made it through, thank you. I don't know how long each one of these is going to be. I'm sort of going to try to logically divide it so they all end up being this sort of like an hour. I could dive a lot deeper, but I'm trying to keep it very high level. I definitely skipped over stuff. That's the point. If you really want to experience it, read it, watch it. I would say for an absolute beginner, watch the live action. It's only 8 episodes, and that covers 60. So 8 1 hour episodes covers 60 20-minute episodes or 106 chapters. It's awesome. I love the live action. The anime, the manga, recommend them all. I think the manga is probably the best if you're looking for that authentic story. But if you're looking to be just like the most approachable, go with the live action. And then if you don't want to have to read, do the anime. All of them are awesome. Would highly recommend. And yeah, that's it for episode 32 of the Dead Soon podcast. Again, appreciate it for listening, and hopefully I'll record this next one soon. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I hope everybody's doing well out there. I think I did a little bit of a check-in at the beginning of the episode, just where things are at. Gonna try and accomplish my goal. This is 32. Hopefully we're at 40 by the end of the year. Think I'm gonna have to get some done this summer because who knows? Just life can get a little busy. So when I have the time, I'm gonna do them. Gonna do it when I enjoy it. This is I'm not trying to get rich and famous. I'm just trying to do this because I enjoy it and I like having these sort of. I want to be able to look back on this podcast in 10 years and who knows how many episodes I'll have done. Maybe I'll have taken a break or maybe I'll have continued and maybe I'm just doing a couple a year. But it's sort of like a time capsule. It's like, hey, when Trevor was 23, he was really into this series. Like let's track it. Let's map it down. And then maybe I'll hop into an episode and be like, hey, I've been really thinking about blah blah blah. It doesn't have to. It can be whatever. I think it's just sort of like becoming my personal journal in a way. And yeah, so I'm really into One Piece right now. I'm gonna keep doing episodes about it. I hope you enjoy. Talk to me about it if you are somebody that I know or and you see me and you're like, hey, like that episode, or you want to talk about One Piece, hit me up. I'm always down to talk about it. But yeah, I feel like I've done like 4 outros for this episode, so I'm just gonna end it right here. Thank you so much.